Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science books on my website and many on Amazon for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small-scale farming and self-sufficiency. If you're a school, co-op, or retailer and need invoicing, please feel free to reach out to me directly. So, hi guys. I am probably going to keep this short tonight. I say tonight because I'm recording the night before this is supposed to come out because I am flying to South Carolina tomorrow. I'll tell you all about that here in a little bit. And I always say I'm going to keep it short when I'm busy, and I never do, but I think I'm actually going to try tonight because I also don't have a voice. So, just getting that bug that everyone's been passing around, and all my kids have already had it. And luckily, it was mild, but it's still it's still hold on, I gotta check my audio real quick. Yeah, no, we're good. Okay, so it's been mild for them, so hopefully it'll be mild for me because I'm traveling this week and that's always really hard, and I'm speaking this weekend, and um so yeah, hopefully I don't kill my voice tonight with you guys. Although you are 100% worth it. Don't let anyone tell you different. So this week, man, I have been buried in milk. I guess buried's the wrong word. I have been drowning in milk. As I think I told you guys a couple weeks ago. I hope I told you guys a couple weeks ago. If I didn't, Blue finally had her calf, and it's a little heifer. Thank goodness, we're so excited. And I couldn't stand it. I named her Feta. She's so cute. So we have blue cheese and feta cheese now. And Blue is giving us so much milk. We're getting almost 3 gallons a day while calf sharing. And we still have Bailey's milk, which is a gallon and a half to 2 gallons a day while calf sharing. And even though we've built up a good customer base, we don't have enough customers to get rid of all of this milk this fast. So I have been really pushing my dairying skills. And it's been a really fun opportunity because Bailey's milk, I've told you guys on the here before, but I'll just kind of go over it again. Bailey is a Belfair, which means she is half Dexter, half Jersey, which her milk is the most amazing flavor, but it's partially homogenized. So I can't, which means that like the fat globules for her butter fat is all mixed into her milk, which is probably why it tastes so good. But any cream that I skim, I've like never been able to make butter or whipped cream. It works great for cheeses or if I'm making, like coffee creamer or cooking with it as cream. It's wonderful, but I just have never been able to use it for butters and whipped creams. And like I said, it's been fine for cheeses, but oh my gosh, we made mozzarella this weekend and I just love the texture so much more with the heavier fat. So I think we did like 5 rounds of mozzarella, and then we, with a couple of them, we chopped them up and did fried cheese curds because it just sounded fun. The rest we haven't done anything with yet. It's still sitting in the fridge. I've done a bunch of yogurt, and I made butter and whipped cream, and the kids made pudding and ice cream, and oh, buttermilk. I can't even list everything we did. Like it was bordering on ridiculous. And there was still like I still didn't even use everything we had, and the next day like the fridge was full again. So really need to work on that. Like we're even giving away some milk to some friends. Um, but it's been fun getting to try all the new things I haven't gotten to try yet. Like I was actually squealing for joy when we got butter again because we haven't had butter in almost 2 years since before Blue's mom passed away. We got butter from her, but we never really liked the flavor of her milk or butter. I don't know. We never could figure out why. I mean, we really didn't like the flavor of her milk at the beginning, and then we added some vitamin E, and it helped with oxidizing the minerals or anodization of the minerals in her feed, and that helped, but we still, it always had a bit of a metallic taste. And it just like really turned us off, and Blues is not that way, so we're really excited. We are fully like in mud season now in Idaho. I did see that there's a little bit more of storms coming in, but we are heading back east for a couple weeks, and it's supposed to be like 80 out there, so I have no clue what to pack. It's gonna be a fun one, and I probably should be packing because we're leaving tomorrow, but you know, there's that. Um, and yeah, we're starting to see some green grass, and I'm just really excited because we're heading into spring. I haven't started any of my seeds yet, which means I have no onions or celery this year, which are two of my favorites. So I'm probably gonna have to buy some onion starts. But I think I'll be back early enough in March to start my tomatoes and stuff and still have all of those do pretty good because I've started tomatoes like way late and still done well. But it's been too busy around here, too crazy. Like with the overflow of milk, then I need to keep my back room cold so I can use that for um like my yogurts and my buttermilks that can be at like a slightly warmer temperature, but even with the temperatures coming up, my cold storage isn't as cold. So, but then that's what I turn into my seed starting room. So it's just been uh it's been a mess lately, like to say the least. Um, but on the business front, oh my goodness, I have some such exciting things that some of them I can't share yet, or I'm just not ready to share until I have them lined out. But we, like I said, we leave for South Carolina. We're going to the Great Homeschool Conventions in Greenville, South Carolina, and I'll be speaking, doing a workshop on Thursday afternoon or evening. So hopefully, anybody who's around gets to come on Thursday and see that. But if you're not for some reason, make sure you stop by the booth if there's anything you want to know. I will be happy to fill you in on anything that you missed. Um, then from there, we're heading up to DC, which I'm going to circle back to the DC trip because that was thrown in last minute. And then next, we're going to be in London, Kentucky for I always say this wrong, the Bushcraft Homesteading and Preparedness Expo, where I'm going to be the keynote on homeschooling. So that's going to be really exciting. And she does this fun, like, meet the author coffee each morning. So I think that's going to be a really great way to connect with a lot of people. On the author list when a lot of times I'm kind of, like I'm a speaker, I'm a vendor, but I think sometimes it's kind of missed that I'm an author too. I mean, I've written 20 something books at this point. Um, just because, I haven't been, published through a big publishing house or something doesn't make me any less an author. And so I'm excited to kind of be highlighted that way. And I've chosen to not go through um, publishing companies as of right now because a lot of my books don't fit that. Just don't fit any publishing company because I am creating something new. Um, I do have my book, like My Raising Self-Sufficient Kids, and it's been really popular, and there might be a place for that in the future, and it's not off the table, but um, yeah, that was like a choice, but it is kind of cool to get highlighted as an author for an event. So that was kind of where I was going with that. Um, and then so the DC trip. So my daughter and I are flying out for 12 days to the East Coast. We've had this plan for a while. We knew both the events were happening. And when we were like, oh, cool, we're gonna get like 5 days in between the conferences to just like drive around and check things out and um listen to audiobooks. We found an audiobook on the American history of cheddar cheese. So like if that doesn't scream what big nerds we are, yeah, we're pretty big nerds. So I'll make sure I link that because I know all of you are gonna run out and want to buy it immediately yourselves. Um okay, I don't know if I just disappeared for a second, but I accidentally touched my screen. And then I have been putting out there a lot that I'm really interested in making some changes in agriculture and rural education. Um just I think there's a need for it, especially in this new administration with a lot of the power going back to the states. And the concerns of college being ran by AI and just a lot of statistics that I've been looking at with rural education and rural employment, and the statistics of what uh, the mastery of certain skills that students are getting in like secondary school, like high school. And I just have a lot of thoughts on how we can make that better. And I already have a really good stance for that with my homestead education science program, teaching agriculture science with more of a small scale focus, a focus on self-sufficiency. And this isn't like a plug for my curriculum. This is that I wrote this with a mission in mind that I felt like more people needed to know these skills, not just from I'm gonna major in agriculture and get a job in ag, but from a that I can just literally feed myself and create that generational sustainability that has just really gone away. And so I've been putting that out into the universe a lot lately, for lack of better definition. And I've came across a few entities that we are going to be partnering together, and I'm on some things, and some things we aren't, and some things we just have the same goals. But basically, one of the conversations that I had led to my daughter and I being invited to DC for National Ag Day, uh, with the national president of the Grange. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Grange. It was formed in, oh, I want to say 1867 after the Civil War as a agricultural like brotherhood. Um, and it's stayed really prominent in a place where rural people can gather together, have a place to be, lobby for agricultural things that are important to them. And, during the 20s and 30s, when they were really trying to revitalize rural life and help with the Great Depression, the Grange had like really integral parts in that. And now that it is, we're kind of past all those things, and a lot of like the importance of ruralness and community has gone away, but so many of us want it back. And the Grange is kind of like, we're here for it. Like, we've been here, we don't plan on going anywhere, but we have something that we can offer, and that is education and community. And so that is something that I have been trying to push as education and community on this rural level, especially with an influx of people moving back to rural communities. Like, I think it's the biggest push back to rural communities. It kind of since like post World War II, when people could start living in more suburban homes because of the cost of homes and cars, but really like in 1908 or '09, something like that, was the first time there was the biggest shift from more people living rurally to more people living urbanly. And I think that over the last few years, between COVID and telecommuting and just kind of like an acknowledgement of what's going on with our food and schools and people homeschooling and just a shift in society. I haven't seen like actual stats on it, but I feel like a lot more people are moving rurally, and if not moving rurally, are definitely um, embracing that generational sustainability that we've lost. And that's it's really exciting. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it through the homestead conferences, I've seen it through podcasting and homeschool events. And so yeah, the Grange and I have been talking for about a year now about how we might be able to make some changes. And like I said, I don't know what that's going to look like at this point, but I did want to share with you that we're going to be there, and that we're going to be there as guests of the Grange. My daughter and I both. She's going to get a lot of really cool opportunities with the Junior Grange, and we're not Grange members and never have been. My grandparents were. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, like, you mean that old building down the road that nobody uses? Yeah, that building. But there's more to it. And there always has been. It's just taking a shift now. And so, and they're actually really embracing the sustainability super well. They call it Project Sustenance. And it's all about being able to rely on your community and taking care of yourself, like food wise, financially. So, I'll go ahead and like just kind of link the Grange, but they're trying to do more at the community level where you're not going to see a lot of that on their main page unless you're looking into that project sustenance stuff, which they have outlined really well. So I'm going to be sharing as much as I can. We're going to have a lot of great opportunities where we're going to the USDA, we're going to Capitol Hill, um, and just meeting with a lot of really influential people. So this is going to be it's going to be really awesome. And like I said, I'm going to share as much as I possibly can. I don't know what all I'm allowed to share or what all I'm even going to have the opportunity to share because I'm going to be busy engaging versus videoing. But we're going to do what we can. I might do my podcast a day late next week so that at the end of National Ag Day, if I'm not dead, there's always a possibility I'm just going to be exhausted. I'm going to try to at least do a short podcast letting you guys know how it went because it's a pretty big deal. Are you looking for new ways to advertise your business? I would like to invite you to advertise your business on the Homestead Education Podcast. Did you know that 60% of listeners will make a purchase after hearing an ad on a podcast? Why is this? Because personal connections and credibility from someone they truly trust will give you the best conversions. My podcast has been on the air for over 3 years now, and with an average of 5,000 downloads per episode and tons of long-term listeners, you're bound to have somebody who will find that credibility in me. All ad spots will be promoted on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my weekly newsletter. I have podcast sponsorship spots available that are affordable for all business sizes. And all advertising revenue will be used towards my educational outreach in the form of travel costs, curriculum development, supplies, and the administration of such activities. Go to my show notes now or visit thehomesteadeducation.com/podcast dash sponsorship. I hope to hear from you soon. So, especially with where we're at today and with so many things and getting to go to DC, like now that some things have changed, I'm pretty excited. Um, but something I'm not excited about is things that this food movement, I don't know, food's going in like two really opposite directions right now. One is the direction that like kind of all of us are going. Like, wait a second, we don't want it if it was processed at all. We want to grow it ourselves. We want to buy it from our neighbors. We want to know what's in our food. And then there's still this huge push for lab grown items. I can't even say food because it's not food. I'm like my stomach turns a little bit thinking about it. It reminds me of whatever grew on a petri dish when I used to work in the food labs. When I say food labs, I'm talking like um, I worked in commodity plants where it was just straight almonds, but I could grow like mold spores off of it and stuff, and we just had to check like a level, but they had some of them hadn't even gone through processing yet. So like don't be grossed out by that comment. So yeah, we've already talked about the lab meat. Now they have lab milk. And it just feels so obvious what they're doing because, there's the egg shortages and there's the meat shortages and now the avian flu is getting into dairies and oh, suddenly we have lab grown milk. Like, what is that? And I you can't do anything with it. You can't make cheese, you can't make butter. I moving on. Where this kind of brought me is I was at my doctor's office the other day, and I have a really great doctor. Um, she's not a homeopath doctor or like a functional medicine. She's just, a regular general practitioner, but she's super big on natural health, personal choice, those types of things. So we had a really long chat because we've seen some really awesome things happen with my labs lately. Like my cholesterol is down like 150 points from where it was when we ate all processed foods. So just really exciting things to see. And so we were chatting on that. How we handle things with our family and how there's like what's the word for it? Like moderation. Um, we have a couple things that we take Western medicine or medications for. And then there's a lot of stuff that we're like, no, thank you. We have that under control through our food and other choices. And it's really great to have a doctor that supports that, especially with our kids. But she said she gets moms in all the time literally upset because they don't know what to feed their kids. And I'm not saying like they don't know how to feed their kids. I think, I mean, there's food everywhere. I'm saying that they are so like inundated with social media and all sorts of other things that are just telling them basically not to feed their kids anything you can, anything that everyone else considers food. So then there's these moms like slaving in the kitchen trying to make homemade fruit snacks or whatever so their kids have something to eat. And it's just really like, I feel bad for them because I remember being there like when my son first got diagnosed with autism. There was all like, you have to take all the gluten out of his food, and you have to take all the dairy out of his food. And I was really trying to follow every diet that I thought was good. And, dyes were just kind of like starting to be talked about as whether or not they were bad or affected like, autism and ADHD. But yeah, I just didn't know like what to feed him. I mean, I don't want to say we ate super healthy, but just because of the way I was raised, like we always like killed our own food. Like we went hunting, we grew a lot of our own vegetables. Even at the time I was in college, but I was an ag major. And even though, yeah, ag is um, one of the big culprits that we're dealing with right now, the school I went to, we had an organic dairy and they sold direct to consumer meat out of their slaughter plant. So, just kind of a different vibe there, I guess. And so we were still eating pretty good, but it was stuff like I'd want to do a pizza on a Friday night for the kids, or maybe I'd have a couple friends over for a study group or something. We'd want to do a pizza, and I was worried that is there going to be gluten in his crust, and it's going to like affect my kid. And I mean, when they were babies, I made all homemade baby food. And it sounds like a lot, but I would just spend a few hours on a Sunday and do it, and it actually went pretty fast. Or, whatever leftovers I had from dinners throughout the week, I would, like when they were really little, if they weren't too seasoned, I'd blend them and put like a little rice cereal in it and then store it in little cups in the freezer. So it really wasn't that bad. But, as they got older, they wanted to eat the same things that their friends were eating. And they were going to preschool, and I was a single mom, and I had to pack a lunch for them every day. And it's really hard to be able to do meal prep when I'm taking 24 units at a time in college as a science major and had an internship and I was raising these two little kids by myself. Yeah, they definitely got fruit snacks in their lunch and it is what it is. I don't think that it has ruined their health in any way because I was on board for natural and homemade foods for them kind of right away. And so we've been able to keep that level of moderation for a lot of their life. But thinking about moms right now that are learning about, stuff with some of the vaccines, I don't even feel like it's a controversial topic at this point when literally people are coming out and saying like, yeah, they like we lied to you. Sorry. Um, things like learning what seed oils do to us and food dyes and the plastics that they're putting in the food and are the emulsifiers and the shelf life stuff and literally what food is by the time you buy it in a box. Like I look at cereals and they're, toting them as whole grains and everything, and it's not. And that's got to be so hard as a parent, especially like maybe a new mom, one that hasn't had like been exposed to like I guess like kind of the homestead movement or didn't grow up in that way of any sort. Like that's got to be really overwhelming. And they're probably asking them, yeah, every time they go to the grocery store, what do I feed my kids? So I realized that like a lot of my stuff is, wow, that's probably a question that a lot of moms have. And probably even a lot of moms that listen to this podcast and because I have those moments still myself, but I do have a few more years experience. I do a little more research. I work with a lot of people who are promoting and explaining some of these things. So if I can kind of break it down for you, I hope that I can be that person. So, right off the bat, I was taught several years ago that when you're looking at pretty much everything like food, cleaning supplies, the material of clothes that you wear, all those things, use the good, better, and best method. So good is fed. Yeah, try not to feed them McDonald's every night, but if you're able to get, maybe some better, like I don't want to say better quality because we're looking at good right now. If your kid eats chicken nuggets, like a glass of milk and a mandarin orange every night for dinner, they're fed. They're not starving to death. Um, and there's probably still some good things. I mean, there's good things in mandarin oranges, there's good things in milk, especially if you're doing raw milk. And there's, depending on what chicken nuggets you buy, like, yeah, they're probably fine too. Um, especially if it's like a store-bought one. Like, I know that sounds strange. Like if you're getting like a Tyson chicken one and not like basically whatever they have at McDonald's just at home. So really consider that. Like especially if you have a picky eater, just make sure they're fed. It's all gonna like work out. Maybe and that's where I kind of go to the like where it goes good, better. So better would be like if you have a kid that only wants to eat yogurt, work on getting them the best yogurt you can. Um, Go organic, less sugars, sweeten it with honey, those types of things. The same thing with the vegetables. Like, yeah, we should be eating organic. Of course, I mean, now we're learning even that organic isn't even as good as we thought it was. But, if you can get your kids to eat tomatoes or apples or whatever, or yourself, but you can't afford organic, that's okay. Like, just get fed. And the better quality that you're getting fed, even better. But yeah, like I said, try to be organic, try to get whole foods, try to get the chicken nuggets that are all white meat, or make them yourself. Buy chicken breasts and cut them up and fry them, or bake them even better. But if you fry, use lard or beef tallow. Don't be using the seed oils. And honestly, as long as you're just aware, you're going to be doing better. So don't stress yourself out. You're not intentionally killing your child, and you're probably not killing your child anyways. I mean, especially if you're acknowledging that there's bad stuff out there in these foods, as long as that's not the only thing they're getting, it has your body has a way of cleaning some of these things out. And I'm not condoning not making sure your kids are eating the right thing, but your mental health affects your physical health. And if you're stressing about it, and then if you're trying to push your kid to eat things they don't want to eat, their mental health is being affected. And then maybe they're not eating at all. So then their nutritional health is being affected. So, I mean, just kind of look at the bigger picture because as long as they're getting fed, you can start working other things into their diet. And this will kind of change as they get older. I promise it does. Especially if you keep pushing it. I mean, if you just allow the fruit snacks all day long, like, yeah, they're only going to want to eat fruit snacks until they're 16 or older, But if that's a luxury, and then the rest of the time you're keeping what they're eating a little bit more level, then you're probably going to be all right. So then best. And I'm not saying we do best all the time. We do a lot of best because we grow all of our own food, not all of our own food, most of our own food. And then the food that we grow, like our pigs, I buy all of our grain locally from local grain mills. So I'm not saying that that means they're 100% perfect, but they are all non-GMO feeds. Um, and I feel better about it because I know the area that we live in. I know the farmers, I know the levels that they're spraying and that type of stuff, and it makes a difference. Not saying there's none of it, but there's not a lot of it. Uh, like I was saying earlier, we make a lot of our own cheeses and butters, and we have our milk, and I buy even our own flour, I buy locally, um, from a local flour mill. We grow our own beef, chicken, pork, as much as we can. Pork we grow a lot more of because if anyone has listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that all we have is pigs. And actually this year we've because we went dry with the cows last year, then we like missed a year on beef, so we didn't have any beef to butcher this year. So, yeah, we've been buying some beef. My husband went to the store today and he's like, "Oh my gosh, they have these packages of beef on or of burger on sale for like $5 for 2.5 pounds or something. Should I get them?" And I was like, "Sure, like, yeah, grab a few." He's like, "There's six. I'm getting all six." So I'm like, "Yeah, go for it." Because, you know, yeah, it's makes it at $6 or $5 or whatever it was. I mean, that stocks our freezer and it may be on the better realm because I'm not buying burgers at McDonald's, but it's not the best because it's not like the non-GMO grass-fed beef that we grow at home. So you just kind of have to look at it that way. Um, so, I hear like, when you talk to a lot of people, they're like, stay out of the center of the grocery store because that's where all of the processed foods are. Stay on the outsides, which is the vegetables, the meat, the cheese, even the breads. And I have to laugh because when I go to the grocery store, because I buy all, or I grow most of those things, I actually do spend most of my time in the middle aisles because really the only thing I need are spices and maybe a couple of boxed things once in a while. Or, we still do things like I just have a thing for Doritos on barbecue cheeseburgers. So I figure, if I make my own buns and we grow our own beef and I put some Doritos on there, like you're just gonna look the other way for me, all right? Because I think it's delicious. And so we actually spend more time in the middle aisles because of everything that we have at home from the outside aisles. But if you're somebody who is not growing everything at home, stay out of those middle aisles. Like, yeah, you're still gonna have to go in and buy your spices or whatever. And I buy a lot of mine online. I love Redmond's Real Salt. I have a code for you guys. I'll put it in the show notes. Because we use that exclusively. I buy it in like 50-pound bags. I use their seasoning salts, their garlic salt. They even have a popcorn salt that is amazing. It's really like ground super fine and it's hydrophilic. And so when you make popcorn that's really dry, you can put that over it and it sticks. And so then I can use less butter and stuff, which I mean, not that I have a problem with butter, but sometimes you just want a snack that isn't greasy. And so yeah, we use it for curing our bacons. They have like electrolyte drinks, all sorts of things. And so definitely if you need a good, spice or a place to get your salt, I definitely suggest Redmond's. It has a ton of minerals in it. And the flavor is amazing. So like my husband who watches his salt intake because of his liver, he can still season his food with Redmond's and not need as much. Um, and so it lowers the amount of actual sodium he's getting. So that's super awesome. Although if you are watching sodium, you're probably never going to get too much just by using a salt shaker. It's more the sodium that like comes in canned foods and things like that. So, yes, stay on the outside of the store. Make sure you're getting, your fruits, your vegetables, your meats, cheeses, dairies, yogurts, all those things. Those are your core foods. Really, you don't need any of the rest. Maybe bread or the flour to make your bread. And you'd be really surprised how many different meals you can make with just those basics. I mean, if you buy a box of cereal, there's one thing you can do with it. You can, well, I guess, I don't know, you can put milk over it. Maybe you can put it on yogurt. I think that's about your options. Um, and whereas I can take a gallon of raw milk and a loaf of bread and a pack of sausage or something and make two or more meals with it. Or if I have the flour to do bread, I mean, goodness, I can make that stretch all day long, maybe 2 days, depending on what I'm doing with it. And you're probably thinking like you're crazy, but I mean, yeah, if I have a couple pounds of sausage for our family size, that would really be all we needed. Maybe some eggs. And I'm not just eating breakfast 3 meals a day. Um, we had a pork roast the other night. We did it in the crock pot as like a pulled pork. We did pulled pork with beans and cornbread and canned apple, like home canned applesauce the night for dinner. The next night, we made buns and had sandwiches with it. And then we skipped a night and did tacos. And then the next night, we did loaded baked potatoes with pulled pork, like over the top of it. And that was one roast. Did all those meals. And the only things extra, I mean, I had a few things in the pantry, like the applesauce. And we made the homemade cornbread. We made the buns and put some cheese over it, and I did buy that cheese because we're just getting back into cheeses again. But that's something from the outside of the store. And yeah, then the potatoes, cheese, sour cream, and the pulled pork on top of it. And it was absolutely delicious. That was 4 meals that we probably spent. Well, I mean, the roast, we grow our own, but I mean, you can still buy a roast like that for like 20 bucks, maybe less. And then you add in the other stuff I bought. I mean, yeah, you're looking at, I mean, depending on your family size, like $30 for 3, 4 meals. And we actually ended up freezing some of the pulled pork. So yeah, that's going into another meal. Um, and that includes like, I bought 15 pounds of potatoes for $1.50. So we did the baked potatoes, but those potatoes are going to last for several more meals. Um, but yeah, if you go into those center aisles, you spend the same amount and you get like one meal out of it. Like, and I mean, think about how people say like, don't buy kids toys that are like based on TV shows or something because it takes all the imagination out of it. Buy them toys that they can use their imagination. Think of food as the same way. If you're only buying boxed macaroni and cheese, yeah, like for that night, it's cheaper. Because like a box of mac and cheese is $1, which you're not even getting a whole pound of pasta. Where I can go over to the pasta aisle and get a pound of pasta for $1 and a block of cheese and some milk. And like I do pasta one night and then my block and cheese and milk can go, with something else. Like, add some tomato sauce and I have tomato soup, with cheese on top. Like I'm getting 2 or 3 meals for such a small amount comparatively to what you would need to fill up that many people with those boxed foods that aren't that good for you anyways. Um, Stop trying to recreate bad foods. So what I mean by that is like the mom who's making fruit snacks because that's what her kid will eat. Just stop it. Because then you're gonna get exhausted, you're gonna give in, and you're gonna buy fruit snacks. I'm not saying I've never made like a fruit like let's see, I used like it wasn't gelatin, pectin. I used pectin and made like a fruit snack kind of thing as a holiday treat. It wasn't something that we're eating every day. Not to say we never eat fruit snacks, but when you're trying to recreate these things that never should have like been in front of your kids in the first place, you're just gonna burn yourself out because there's just not a way to sustainably do that. Um, there's a lot of other options that, I do say like fed is best, but there comes like a line and your 3-year-old has been like, I'm not saying starve your 3-year-old, but eventually like you're like, no, we don't have fruit snacks. You can have an orange. And if they don't want an orange, then they can have dinner and just not have a snack. Like they're not going to starve to death. Yeah, 3-year-olds when they're hungry get grumpy, but is that fruit snack really filling them up or is it just giving them that sugar and red dye that their body is craving because they've been getting it? So just ask yourself those things. We did some of that when we first switched to all natural because it was really hard to switch a family of 8 from eating things like mac and cheese and fruit snacks. And I'm using those as an example because they're so common, but I mean, I'm sure you could list 100 other things that you're doing something similar with. Um, and so I had to like, adjust us slowly. And so for some things I did try to recreate while also trying something new completely. And yeah, it didn't happen overnight. It's been 8 years. And now we have a groove and we make so much of our own, but you don't have to do that either. And like I said, it's everyone's like, well, but the healthy food's more expensive. Honestly, it's really not because it's going to fill you up more. It's probably going to last longer as far as meals go. Like you could buy a can of soup for, gosh, I think they're $3 now for like a can of like chunky chicken noodle soup or something, where I can take a chicken home with some veggies and seasoning and make chicken noodle soup. Even my noodles, if I need to. I mean, they're like $1 if you buy them, or if I make them myself. I don't want to say they're free because I buy my flour and I have eggs and it takes all day. But I can make a bunch and make it last. But for, I don't know, $15, I can feed the entire family, plus have broth for a couple more nights, possibly even have more chicken where we can do chicken sandwiches the next day or egg rolls. Sometimes there's enough that maybe I can use it for like a chicken pot pie. So I'm getting 2 or 3 meals out of one chicken and several vegetables for $15 versus a can of soup for $3. It would probably take like one of those each for everyone in my family. So, I mean, right now there's 6 of us in the house, so that's $18 for one meal that probably isn't that great for us. And we're probably still buying like something to make sandwiches or have rolls with it or something like that. So, it's just not it when you look at it that way, it's not worth it. I mean, yeah, when you run to the grocery store by yourself and you're just like, "Oh, I need some lunch." Yeah, it's probably cheaper to go with the can of soup because you're not going to go back to the office and you know, boil a chicken. But if you're doing that in advance, you might have already had it in the freezer or something ready to go. And once you get into that groove, you find that you're not having to seek those things out all the time because you already have them. And that's another one is save all your leftovers. If the chicken, if you only have a little bit, feed it to the chickens or your dog or whatever. If you have a lot, then go ahead and package it up. Whether it's like tonight for dinner, we had a chicken pot pie that we made a couple weeks ago. We ended up not eating the second one, so we froze it. If if it's just a like one serving, it doesn't matter. Like package it up and freeze it because that might be your lunch in 2 weeks instead of running to the store for that can of soup. Um, so I'm just like checking my notes because I really wanted to make sure that I took some time to make sure that I covered all this stuff. So one of them actually had it down further, but avoid the mainstream influence. So when we're talking about recreating bad foods for your kids, if your kids don't even know about them, then you don't have to feed it to them. I mean, yeah, they still go to the grocery store with me and they see it, but if they don't see it as an everyday thing, like, yeah, every once in a while I'll see like fruit snacks on sale and I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and get some. Like, it's a treat. Or we're going for a drive, and so like it's our drive treat. But they're not going to public school where they see every kid with a fruit snack in their lunchbox every single day. And, I'm sending my kids with oatmeal or something. I don't even know. Like, I don't know what I would send them with. Like, I guess an orange. Like, I'd send them with an orange. Um, we're lucky that even our homeschool co-op is very similar and all the families pitch in. And so there's a couple moms that will make snack for everybody and nobody uses that stuff. So, like, it's kind of cool. Like, my kids don't see a lot of that outside of the home, so it's not an everyday thing. They don't see it as a food group, they see it as a treat. And we're seeing a lot of changes coming. So this is going to be easier for all of us to kind of stay on top of. A lot of states are banning the dyes now. I think federally red 4 is banned. Don't quote me on that one. It's one of them though. Um, with RFK, he's really, some people are concerned about what he's doing. I feel like from my standpoint, if we're looking for food freedom and we have someone in there that is mandating things, does that take away from those of us who want food freedom, even the whole food sector? I don't think it does. But yeah, there is that fear that if he's going to ban red dye 40, is he also going to ban raw milk? I don't think that's the case, but I also feel like it could be opening the door for that, those types of regulations. Um, Hopefully there's, you have to have a certain amount of proof of like long-term effects or something like that. Before, because I raw milk is not the same as red dye 40. Like, and there's a lot of people that are concerned about raw milk, and I do want to address that one. What most people think of when they think of raw milk is the milk out of the raw tank at a dairy, like a commercial dairy. Like, I wouldn't feed that to the pigs. Like, it's pretty bad. Um, and then it goes, into the milk truck, and then it goes to the creamery where then they strain it and pasteurize it and do all those things that makes it air quote safe to drink. But of course, now that we've learned so much more, where then there's, our dairy where we sanitize our milking equipment every night. Um, in the mornings, we clean our girls' teats really good, and then we hook up the inflations, and it's a totally closed system where the milk goes directly into our milker. It's not exposed to anything at the barn, which we have an open um, milking parlor because that's just what we have to work with. It does have a couple walls there to keep wind and stuff as an issue out, but yeah, there's no exposure to anything at the barn because once she's done milking, we just pull the inflations off and they like bend over. So then we set them in the cleaned cart that we clean like once a week and it comes back to the house. And then from there we strain it. So, because every once in a while there'll be like a hair stuck to one of our girls' teats or something and that'll show up in the milk. But other than that, it's a really clean product compared to what people are comparing um, bulk tanks and dairies to being. And it's like I said, it's a totally different product. It's coming from totally different animals, on totally different feed regimens and medication regimens and all those things. So like there are some dangers once in a while with raw milk not coming from a clean enough source, and a few people have had issues with food poisoning. And I think about 10 years ago, I think a kid died. So that is concerning. I'm not taking that off the table. But when you look comparatively at some of these other mainstream products and how many people have died from that and the effects of things like red dye 40, like the cancers and the behavioral issues that's causing, if you have a child that actually doesn't have ADHD and they have a sensitivity to red dyes, and so then now they're being pumped full of amphetamines that they don't need because they don't actually have anything like that, and their behavior isn't getting better because that's not actually the problem. So then they're consuming the red dyes like with breakfast every morning, in their cereal, and they're going to school and they're acting a fool. And then they're getting put on meds and the meds don't work. So they're upping the meds and then they're doing a different med. And like the long-term effects of that, I would much rather maybe occasionally have a stomach upset from my milk than to have the long-term reoccurring effects that are happening from these dyes. So that's just my little soapbox on that one. Because I was actually anti-raw milk for a long time. I was a food safety specialist. I read all the scary stories, and was like, oh my gosh, it's killing children. And, it's not. I mean, yeah, it killed a child, like 10 years ago. And it was the practices, it wasn't the milk. But I'm not even, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not condoning children dying from milk, but I am saying that the story was presented in a way that made me be like, raw milk? No, not happening. Even when we bought our cow, well, I was pregnant. My husband was still like very much in the worrisome stages of his liver cirrhosis, and we had a 1.5-year old. So we low temp pasteurized for about a year. And then as health got better, I wasn't pregnant anymore. The little one got older. We tested it a little like, okay, we know our system is clean. Let's try like mom's gonna drink like a glass of milk and see how it affects her. And next thing we know, we were like, oh, this is fine. And then, of course, more research and stuff too. Um, so I am coming out with a cookbook, not to kind of be like, oh, and it's an afterthought. This was something that's kind of just been like on my heart for a while because so many people have asked how we healed ourselves from my husband healed from liver disease. Um, and it's kind of been an up and down for me. And this cookbook is not going to be how to heal yourself from liver disease. And after my last baby and all the steroids I had to take, I put on a bunch of weight. So it's also not a weight loss book. And I'm not going to try to pretend it is because, Yeah, when you put on that much weight, you can't even pretend like that. It is literally like a home cooking cookbook. But if we're gonna go on my weight, like they always say, like never trust a skinny cook. So you're good. Like these are gonna be some yummy foods. But what it is this cookbook, a lot of people, it wasn't, like I said, it came about because people want to know how we healed from the liver disease or how we've kept our bodies and stuff healthy through food and, eliminating toxins and stuff like that. But how do we do it in a way that still tastes good, that our kids still want to eat, that we can have people over for dinner and they're not wondering why, like, you're feeding them like cardboard gluten-free bread or something, which we're not gluten-free. Like, these are just real home cooking, completely from scratch options. And I say options because, in the recipe book, it's going to have things like, one of them, strawberry shortcake. We love strawberry shortcake. So yeah, I much prefer to have strawberries out of my garden. I bake homemade shortcake and then I do whipped cream from my cows. Like, yay. But sometimes it's the dead of winter and I don't have any of those things. And well, I guess I could still bake the cake. But I'll stop at the store and they'll have strawberries on sale with like those little like cakes you can buy. Heck yeah, like we buy those whenever they're on sale because it's just such a fun, easy dessert. And of some of the desserts out there, I feel better feeding them to my kids. So the recipe will, have what you put in it, but then it'll list what page you can go find how to make homemade whipped cream, with cream either that you buy from the store or from your cow, which is different, because everyone's cow is different. I actually was having a chat with somebody online today about how everybody has to handle their raw milk differently because of, like just climate and animals and what their feed is and everything. So that's how that book is going to look. I'm calling it Grandma's Old Cookbook, Rhythm of the Homestead Kitchen. And actually, I have total of like two of my grandmother's recipes. So that would be a very short cookbook if it was just from that. But the reason I'm calling it that, and there's going to be a whole explanation on this, is that we have lost that generational sustainability. So, yes, I'm not a grandma, kind of. Not really. I don't know. I'm 41, so I don't know if it counts and he's not my kid. But my husband's stepson from his first marriage does have children, so I guess like for my cookbook it works. But um it's more that I've taken the time to research cooking methods, research the rhythms, relearn how to cook in a way that we don't live in the kitchen, but we probably eat a lot like our grandmothers and our great grandmothers did. Because a lot of our grandmothers were like putting Vienna sausages in gelatin, and I don't know what was going on with that. So um, I have things that are a little better. And like I said, there's a whole section on that I explain why even though I only have two of my grandmother's recipes, they were the most important ones to me. And I swore that I would never share them, not to her, just to myself. And then I realized that so many people don't have these skills. They weren't passed on, and even some of them weren't passed on to me. I had to figure them out, research, learn them, and not just from cookbooks. Like literally, I have read books about just how women did things in their kitchens and learned that rhythm. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. While you're waiting, though, I do have another cookbook that I came out with right after we switched to everything homemade. Because I ran all the numbers of what it looked like because we were really like it was expensive to try to switch to all natural, all homemade before we started growing our own food. So I ran all the numbers to know exactly what it looked like, so I knew what was worth it to us and what wasn't. And I put that into a cookbook about 5 years ago, and that's still available on my site. It's called Homemade Cost Cutting, and I'll go ahead and link that in the show notes. It's only $7, so it's a real quick download, and it's how we saved $2,500 a year on groceries by going all natural. Um, no coupons, no packaged foods. And honestly, in today's economy, that's probably 35 or 4,500 just, from 5 or 6 years ago. So definitely go check that out. I'll link it all in the show notes. I know it's easy to say, like, don't worry, but I feel like we just learn about new bad things every day. So just stay ahead of it, acknowledge, do your research, moderate, read more than just what they used to say foods were good for. Read more than what they're telling you foods are good now, because sometimes I trust those sciences just as much as I trust the old sciences. Um, really honestly, like eat your foods as close to the way God made it. Um, and if you are processing in any way, like, yeah, I'm not gonna go like just eat raw meat. I'm gonna cook it or I'm gonna, but I'm not going to bring it inside and freeze dry it and grind it and mix it with something and reconstitute it into like a burger patty with a whole bunch of emulsifiers and things that, make it stable and the right color and, caramel coloring to make it brown still. And, well, it lost all of its flavor from being freeze dried. So I'm going to put sugar in it. No, none of that. Like I'm literally going to, like we butcher at home, we bring the meat in, we grind it, we freeze it, and then when I want tacos, I thaw it out and I have the meat. And literally, there's been nothing done to it except for just chopping it down and cooking it. So, just kind of think about that. Like, how many steps away from original are you? I think they call it like degrees of something or something like that. But yeah, I mean, just think about that. Like, if you can count the steps away from original, like more than like your hand, then, the five fingers on your hand, maybe you shouldn't be eating it. And that's, I guess, where I end on that one. So we're gonna go the rule of five. If it's five steps away from the way God made it, we're not gonna eat it. All right, keep growing. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at The Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!